Thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. So, our podcast is for people that want to either learn something new or make themselves a little bit better every day. So, we talk a lot about personal improvement, taking responsibility for our lives, controlling the things we can control, kind of compartmentalizing and shutting out the noise in other places. And one of the things we try to do is find interesting people who have built a really interesting life for themselves, who are willing to come share their stories with us, talk about their path, talk about the things that they have tried and they've experienced, what they've learned from those experiences, and some of the coping techniques and methods that they have used to go from where they started to where they've got to now. And I feel like we've been on a pretty good run here, and we're going to continue that with our guest today. So we're very fortunate today to have with us Emilia D'Anzica. She is based out in California. She has led a very interesting life, lived in at least 3 countries that I know about, potentially more, and we can talk about that. She is the founder and has successfully sold a technology business in a very male dominated industry in technology, which is super interesting. That company is called Growth Molecules. We'll include a link to that in our show notes so you can take a look at it. And then she is also the author of a book talking about her experiences and her recommendations for women in tech. And I believe that's called Pressing On as a Tech Mom, if I've got it correct. And so we're going to talk to her about all of those things today. We're very fortunate to have her on the show. Very excited to welcome her. So, with all of that said, Emilia, welcome to Salty Ginger Talk.
Hi, Joe. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about today.
So are we. So for what it's worth, Emilia and I've had to. This has tested my patience because Emilia and I first talked several weeks ago, and her schedule is very busy, and so we set up today. So I've had to look at this appointment on my calendar, waiting for it to get here, and now we're here. So I'm super excited about it. First things first, did your move go okay? I know you were helping a family member move. Everything go all right there?
Yes, my daughter is in college in Los Angeles and moved her and her roommate into their first apartment. So bittersweet indeed.
Is that your first one to leave the nest?
Yes, my first daughter to leave the nest and a bit painful, but it's also so fun to be able to go out with her now and she wants to be seen as an adult. So that's what I'm trying to do instead of constantly mother her.
I'm a little bit further along the curve than you are. I have 3 sons, the oldest being 30, the youngest being 25. So I know exactly what you're going through. And it's funny because I used to tell my sons, look, I can't miss you if you won't go away. Like it's time to go out and experience what the world has to offer. And then when they go, you're like, shoot, I'd like to have them, it wasn't so bad having them around.
That's
So,
right.
so totally get it. So, anyhow, thanks for joining us. I know that you had that. I know that was important to you. I'm glad it went well. Glad to hear that. Let's just jump right into it. So, one of the things I find so interesting about your experience, Emilia, is the places you have lived. And one of the things we talk about a lot on the podcast is you have to develop relationships with other people. And I think that's a challenging thing to do in today's environment for a variety of reasons, even in one country and one culture. And you have experience doing that in multiple countries and multiple cultures. I would love it if you would be willing to talk about the different experiences you've had, how you handled that. Was it what challenges you had, how you overcame those challenges? I'd love for our listeners to hear firsthand from someone who has gone through that. So if you wouldn't mind, take it away.
Sure. I will give you the very compressed version, but I am an immigrant from Naples, Italy, the southern part of the country, and first immigrated to Canada after an earthquake in our area in 1981. And my parents had 6 children. So half went with my father, I'm one of those. The other half went with my mother. And we immigrated to Canada, and that was the first experience of really understanding their different cultures, different way of communication. I remember my first experience crying that the milk tasted different in Canada and me being very upset about it. I also remember the first word my great aunt taught me in English, and that's love. And I will never, and that will always stay with me, is that no matter what culture you're from, you can find love in our differences. And from Canada, got my degree. From there, I moved to the United States and then moved back to Italy and Denmark to work and live for almost 2 years. And then I happened to meet my partner while on a trip in San Francisco. And fast forward 20 years, three kids, we're here. But I've worked and did my MBA with the Don Bosco Group in India. I worked for an Israeli company for 3 years and also did some work in New Zealand, Australia. I have worked with people and collaborated with people of all different views, backgrounds, genders. And what I can say is there's always a common ground, and that's how you succeed. Even if you can't understand each other. And I remember working in Israel, being the only person in the room that wasn't speaking Hebrew. And no matter how many books you read before you go to a country, you can never prepare yourself until you're there. And the good thing is we can use our hands, gestures, movements to communicate very quickly. And I think through all these different experiences, that's what I've learned is we as humans can communicate in many different ways, even if we don't agree with each other.
That's so a couple things. One, I love that the first word, English word you learned is loved, and that's outstanding. Thanks for sharing that. That's such a powerful message. In terms of working across cultures, what challenges did you face with that? I'm not talking about this specific person or this specific thing, but like, how did you bridge those? How do you find that common ground with people? Because sometimes it's hard to do even when we're speaking the same language. But what are some techniques you use to reach out to people and kind of find that common ground?
I think one of the things, people talk about ageism. I've experienced it being now in my 40s, closer to my 50s. But in my 20s, I feel like I experienced it. And being in a male dominated industry, software as a service, and then working with different cultures where women might be seen differently and often being talked down to in my 20s. I one day just sat this person down and explained to him that we were equal and that we were working together towards a common mission. I let him know I knew he had a bonus structure, and so did I. And we both wanted to not only help our clients, but also wanted to meet our personal financial title goals, whatever it is you want to call it. And I asked him specifically with examples what I didn't appreciate and what was holding us back from working together. And one of the things is he liked to yell and raise his voice as a way of authority. And being Italian, I can have my own temper, but I chose not to. I chose to have a civil conversation, and I think it was hard for him and he didn't say much, but I can guarantee you that our conversations and respect for one another, we're still friends on Facebook to this day, fast forward 20 plus years, uh, changed. And I think that's one of the main things I've learned is um, taking a step back and having the courage to communicate in ways that they may understand, they may not appreciate or agree, but just taking the time to explain yourself. And if they cut you off, let them know you're cutting me off. Can I finish my thought? And then I'm happy to stay silent so you can express your views as well. I think that's probably one of the most important lessons. And I had to learn it early because I really wanted to succeed in tech. And I didn't coin it as ageism back then. I don't even know if I thought about it. But looking back on it, there were so many things at hand. There was gender, age, and the cultural authority that this person came from that he felt over me. So I think that was really fundamental, having the courage to have that conversation.
Sure. That's so. So many good things you just talked about there. First, let me apologize for men. We can be idiots, but we make up for it with gross overconfidence. So I, it is what it is. We're not great at that sometimes, but I love how you handled it. And I just want to point it out to our listeners. So she didn't run from it. She didn't shrink from it, but instead of escalating and engaging in similar behavior, she takes a step back. She de-escalates the situation. She gets her point across in an effective way, and such a powerful message. It's not an accident that she wound up in a leadership role by taking actions like that. And so I'm so glad you got to hear from her firsthand how she handled a specific situation. So thank you so much, Emilia, for sharing that with our listeners. We talk about these things, and it's so great to have real life examples that aren't me running my mouth, to hear it from other leaders. And so just great stuff. Great stuff. How did you get interested? You've talked about tech, and that's where you've made your living. How did you get interested in that initially, and then kind of walk us through that path? Because I don't think you started founding a company. I think you worked through some things and then kind of found something that made sense to you. If you wouldn't mind sharing that, that'd be great.
I think getting a degree in Canadian studies, imagining my life in Canada, I have a minor in social history. I thought I would go down either a legal or PhD professor path, but at the time, my boyfriend and I just took a road trip to California from Vancouver, and I fell in love with the San Francisco tech scene. At the time, there was incredible music, all the all-night raves. I was 24. It was just so exciting. And I met really like-minded people, people seeking progress, innovation, willing to take risks. And I met a lot of Canadians too. So I felt really like, wow, this is a place I could grow. And so I started applying, and the jobs that at the time you looked on Craigslist for jobs, the jobs that were out there were tech jobs. So I applied to a marketing event position, and they said, "Sure, come on in. We'd love to interview you, but we want you to know we think we found a candidate we're probably going to go with." But I must have written some compelling application. So I went in, and back then, no one teaches you write a thank you letter, but I chose to make a card. I grew up in a household where we didn't buy cards, we made cards. So I made a card for the person who would have been my boss, Casey, my first uh, mentor, I should say, and boss. But I sent her that card, and she called me about a week later and said, "That card got you the job. It showed that you were creative, thinking outside the box, and you showed interest in a way that wasn't canned. You got the marketing position." And so from there, I just never looked back. I've always been in tech really ever since.
Wow, what a story. So there again, set yourself apart, right? Thinking outside the box. She didn't wait for, or she didn't ask for permission. She took action, right? So I love pointing that stuff out that we talk about. Like, it's not an accident that all these tremendously successful people we have on the podcast take similar actions. They may be different in different industries, but they're thinking outside the box. They're pushing for what they want. They're collaborating. They're building relationships. These things aren't accidents. That all successful people have these things in common. So you start with this marketing position in tech where you didn't expect to wind up, and then how did you progress to, like? I mean, you've done some stuff that most people never do. Most people don't found a technology company, and the ones that do, a lot of them don't make it. And you successfully exited yours. That's super impressive. Or if you can talk about some of that, that'd be outstanding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the best things my dad ever told me is before you go do something, try it. At one point, I wanted to open a store. The first thing I asked him for a loan, the first thing he said is, "Have you ever worked in that kind of store?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Come back to me after you go work in one of those stores for a few years and feel like you can actually buy the products and no supply chain and can lead a group in retail, and tell me if you like it." And I went and did it and realized I absolutely do not want to do that. And
Mm.
so once I entered tech, I mean, I survived the 2001 bust, the 2008 bust, all of those things. So I've been through layoffs. As you climb the ladder, you're more likely to experience a layoff, getting fired, all of those good things that make you stronger, that teach you grit, that make you question, should I even stay in this? Am I washed up? Is this really for me? All of those things really make you think about, what do you want to do? And when COVID hit and I laid off more than half my team, and I had very few people left in the US, a couple people in Canada, a team in the Philippines, I was soon let go of after that. I think a month after I laid off my own team. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to go work for someone else. I want to do it myself. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I live in Sonoma County. There's lots of land here. I grow a lot of fruit and vegetables in my own backyard. And I was just in the dirt, digging, planting a seed, and every day watching it. I didn't have a job. I was thinking, what do I do next? We're in the middle of COVID. It was the first summer of COVID. And I started playing with words around exponential growth and seeds, and growth molecules was born, which means exponential growth. And I went and got it trademarked, even though the lawyer said you can't do that. That's a scientific term. I said, let's try. Let's ask the U.S. government. So they ended up granting me the name, and started a management consulting firm initially, helping tech companies grow revenue, and clients started asking for training. And what was born is a second company, and that's the Academy, which I also sold. I sold them around the same time. And I did that for 4 years. But before I did that, I had consulted in the past for a couple years for some other management consulting firms. So I felt like I learned as much as I could, and what I wanted to do and liked, and what I wanted to do different from these other people, because there's thousands of management consulting firms. Why should mine succeed? And so I really wrote down, how was I going to be different and what was my message. And I didn't do it alone. Just want to be clear that it takes team, people who believe in you, um, experts. I'm not an expert in everything. I surrounded myself with people who could help me and support me in building this company. And number one is, you have to believe in yourself and your idea, and keep telling yourself, even each time you lose an opportunity to a competitor, it can break so many people. I can't do this anymore. I don't have enough money to keep going. You have to keep going. You have to keep believing in yourself. And that's how I got through COVID, and fast forward to 2025.
Wow, super impressive. So I found that so interesting. I actually watched your video that you made talking about planting seeds as a child, and then you've carried that forward to your adult life, and you use that now. You ate the food when you were kids, and that literally fed your family. And then as you grew older and you did it as an adult, you share some of that with neighbors, and then you use some of it to feed yourself. But that's such an interesting parallel. I love how it inspired your business. And I think for me, at least, the takeaway there is the things that you choose to do every day can inspire you to other things, but you have to take action on those things. So being out in your garden and working in your garden one wouldn't make the leap to, hey, I'm going to found a tech company. But it's such a good
Yeah.
parallel. I love the way you spoke about it in your video that I watched. So I have not read your book yet. It's on my list, and I will read your book. But talk a little bit about what inspired you to write the book. First, give us like kind of a brief synopsis of what your book is about, and then walk us through what motivated you to write it and what did you learn through that experience.
Sure. So I co-wrote it with Sabina Pons. She is now the CEO and COO of Growth Molecules, the company that acquired the management consulting firm is Helix. and Sabina went with the company. So she's not only a dear friend, but a co-author and was instrumental in the growth of the company. And both experienced during COVID all these women leaving tech. And as research was coming out, it was becoming abundantly clear the women were making less money. They were expected to be the babysitters on Zoom while their children went to school, and the men were staying in tech. And we thought, what could we do to help inspire women to stay in tech and educate men and people without children as to why they should keep mothers in tech and how critical they are in the products they're creating, because women are buyers, they're decision makers of everyday products that we all consume. And so we did a survey. We just put it out there. Over 300 women anonymously filled it in from all over the world, all different views on their experience in tech. Some had left, some had stayed, some were thinking about leaving, and others were thinking about entering. And from that, we interviewed dozens of women. We featured 12 of them. We tried to feature as many different backgrounds as possible. So one woman I interviewed didn't enter tech until her 50s after her three daughters were grown, and she had been in advertising all her life. And now she was a successful executive in tech. And other mothers entering, one from India, immigrating to the US and raising children that are American. So we feature all these stories in tech, and it's not a book about bashing anyone or putting down the tech industry, but rather celebrating it and the diversity and creativity that moms bring, and just how amazing it is that they're able to handle so much and yet still bring their best selves to work every day. And that's really what the book is about. Sabina and I share some raw stories about struggling to stay in tech. She talks about post depression. I talk about how do I keep breastfeeding and being a consultant for my company when a time you don't even get maternity leave. But that's when I had children. There's no such thing. And
Mm.
so, how do you manage to keep staying in tech and asking for a private room that's not a bathroom? So, those kind of things are what we really get raw about and talk about, that are often just put in a closet. People don't talk about those things. So, it's really a celebration and hopefully an inspiration for leaders and moms in tech.
I love it. I can't wait to read it. Like I said, it's on my list. So I love the perspective there. It's interesting because I grew up with three sisters. So I don't have any brothers. I have three sisters. And I say a lot, and people think I'm joking, but I'm not. It's actually the best management training I ever got, was growing up with three very different sisters. They're all very smart, very capable, great people. I've been married to my wife for 32 years. I value her opinion probably more than anybody else's in the world. And she's one of the few people that will look me in the eye and tell me when I'm full of shit. And so there's a lot of value in having a person that will help keep you honest. Um, it feels to me, and I'd be interested to get your take on this, and I'm not trying to be controversial at all, but it feels to me that with people are afraid to talk about the differences between men and women. And I actually think it's a mistake, because if we can respect different viewpoints, we can get so much more out of our coworkers if we're willing to listen to viewpoints that are different than ours. And I'd be curious if, and again, I'm not trying to be, not trying to put you on the spot, not trying to be controversial, but I would love it if you could share the difference in when you were an individual contributor or reporting to someone else, and how that impacted your leadership style when you were running the company. Because you had to take some of those experiences and think about, how am I going to do it different now that I'm in the big chair? I'd love to hear that if you're willing to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I don't think what you're saying is controversial. It needs to be talked about. And I, like most people, can say that I've had horrible bosses of both all genders. Let's just put it that
Me
way.
too. Me too.
good inspiration to start a company. But I will say that I've learned from all of them and have taken some really hard experiences and made sure that I didn't repeat them. Sometimes you do without even realizing it. So I thought, for example, I was giving someone very direct, clear feedback with examples, and she broke down in tears. And I have been in that position where that is something natural to me that sometimes I'm feeling such an emotion. I just can't help but have tears running down my face. And that's how she interpreted my feedback. And it was painful for me to experience. And that's the last thing I wanted her to feel. Uh, but I think that's just how sometimes people react, including me. So I think if we were to open the workplace and be more accepting of our differences, and it's not just women, I've had men who have come to tears because they've been so passionate about whatever it is they're talking about. It's just like a human behavior or reaction. And I think it's just really important to accept our differences. One of the most impactful books I ever read is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. And the two doctors who put that book out just put out a newer version, which I would love to read and retake my EQ because they offer a test for everyone to take. And I used to put my all my teams through that training when I was leading teams. And I think the number one thing is when you're in a leadership position, you have such limited time, you tend to cut people off and you just want them to get to the point. And I think sometimes you just have to shut up and let them finish their thought because your mind is already thinking about, oh, they're going to say X and here's how I'm going to respond. I think it's just really important as a leader not to cut people off and not to jump to conclusions. Let them finish their thought. And if you really want to take it a step further, don't answer them. Ask them, what do you think we should do? Or let me think about it and get it back to you. Can we pick this up again tomorrow? And I think that's really the number one thing I really had to work on as a leader when I became a director, a VP, a chief customer officer, and then a CEO. I think that's the number one skill that too many leaders don't have.
Love it. I couldn't have said that better myself. Great job. Um, I read a book one time called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. I don't know if you've read that book or not.
I
But it
have not.
essentially
Tell me
said,
more.
yeah, so it's a really cool book because what it says is the same things that made you successful as an individual contributor or department manager are not the same characteristics you need to be successful in bigger leadership roles. And so, similar to you, I'm the CEO of a company that owns 7 grocery stores. And so, I need to think about when I say something, I can't just muse out loud because it's not taken as, oh, Joe's just thinking out loud. People hear an order. For example, if we're redesigning a product package and I say, I wonder what it would look like if the label was green instead of red. What people hear is Joe wants that label to be green instead of red. They'll go do the
Mhm.
work, even if that wasn't what I meant, right? And what got you here won't get you there said there were the thing that stuck with me the most is there are only 4 things that motivate people. One of 4 things motivates people: money, popularity, respect, or gosh, I always forget the fourth one. But I remember thinking 3 of them don't matter to me at all, with money and popularity being 2 of them. And
Mhm.
I was kind of born that way, and then it's been enhanced over time. But the respect, recognition, that's what it is, recognition. And recognition
Mhm.
doesn't mean anything to me either. Just that's, and I'm not saying I'm better or worse. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm saying that's who I am. But the
Mhm.
respect part is very important to me. And so as long as I know people appreciate what I'm doing and respect what I'm doing, I'll run through walls for people. But I've had people dangle money in front of me. I've had people dangle recognition in front of me, and it doesn't work for me at all. Um,
Mhm.
And I learned from that as a leader to try to figure out, you talked about emotional intelligence, and I absolutely love that you did because it's so important. I found out, especially when you're having more challenging or difficult conversations, what's motivating this person? Instead of listening to how they're saying what they're saying, which is hard to do because so much of communication is nonverbal, their gestures, their tone of their voice, their facial expressions, we're wired to pick up on those things. And if you listen to what they're and how they're saying it, you can sometimes be fooled into forgetting what their motivation is. So I try to figure out if someone's got good intentions or not good intentions. If they've got good intentions, I'm going to work really hard to try to collaborate with that person. If they've got bad intentions, I'm going to go after them pretty hard and try to get rid of them as fast as I can. So that's the approach that I take. But when you have different people working with you or for you, you kind of have to take a different approach. I'd be curious to hear if you agree with that, and if so, maybe share an example of how like you've handled different people differently in similar situations. Does that make sense? I don't think I asked that very intelligently.
No, I can appreciate that, and different people, like you said, are motivated by different things. So some people really need to be told continuously that they're doing a good job, and that really motivates them. And once you learn that about someone, you need to take the time to give a thumbs up, call it out, have someone on our team a while back had said, I really would like it if you'd have more meetings and tell us what's happening with the company. And that for me was a sign you need to do this for your team. Your team wants to know. And then someone asked, can we just celebrate more client stories? There's so many different clients we're working with. Some of us are so far in the weeds, we don't even know what the other consultants are doing. So taking the time to listen to what they need, what motivates them, and then putting time aside. Now, I hate long meetings. So those meetings were never more than 30 minutes. And I really tried to have someone speak about whatever it is, a client we just finished working on, a program we just completed, whatever, an event we just sponsored, so that they weren't just listening to me and it was more about them. I think, that's a really important thing to do, is making it about them versus you.
Yes, well said. Great comments there. Absolutely love those. Excuse me. So, um, how did your life change when you went from working for a company to running your company? What was different in your life? What impact did it have on both your professional and personal life?
Yeah. I mean, I've always traveled for work. I feel like I've just being in tech and facing the customer, that also often includes traveling. But when you own the company, for some reason you end up traveling more, at least in my
Mm.
experience of management consulting. And I thought I was really burning out, and I realized my family was burning out as well. So, I don't know if my partner or one of my children said something about a divorce, and I said, "What are you, is my family going to divorce me? Are y'all going to lock me out one day?" Because it was almost like they were surprised I was home. And I thought, you know what, this doesn't feel good. Like my children are growing up without me, without someone else coming in the house every day, and I'm not being part of these milestone events. And that was really hard, being in the position of selling. When you start a company, you better be able to sell your own product and believe in it. The other thing is, and this came from someone on my team, they said, Emilia, you never uh, introduce yourself as the CEO, as the leader of the company. I'm, I am more on the quiet side. I don't want to live by titles or what I do. Like that doesn't create who I am. But for a lot of people, it changes how they treat you. And so I had to really work hard, putting my title in different things, even on my LinkedIn. Now I have all my degrees because I feel like, okay, some people almost disrespect me or like push me aside as who's she until they realize like I know what I'm talking about. I've been through the schooling, I've done the hard work, and suddenly the conversations change. I even had a CIO once email me. He was involved in the engagement, but then a little bit removed for obvious reasons. He was leading a very large company, and he sent me an email questioning our work. And I initially was so upset. And honestly, if I had written back in the moment, it wouldn't have been pleasant. So rule number one, never do that as a leader. But I really took the time to write the email. And then I asked ChatGPT how empathetic this was to this person's concern and to help me make it more empathetic. And then anytime I use ChatGPT, I then turn it into my voice. I don't just
Yep.
copy and paste. That's rule number two. Don't do that either. Um, but his response was so thoughtful back. And I think he realized it was almost like he was micromanaging the project when it was in a way that he was getting in the way. I essentially told him, get out of the way. Here's what we're doing and why. And if you don't trust the process, why did you hire us?
Yep.
And there's a way to be able to say that thoughtfully and with respect. And I think our relationship changed from that day on. We ended up having dinner. Even after I sold the company, we met again, and he changed his tone and communication towards me. And it's because I had to show some sort of authority. And I hate saying that, but as a leader, you need to be able to do that tactfully and with respect, not like, hey, I'm the CEO, back off. I know what I'm doing. Like, you just can't say that to people, but you have to find a way to say it with respect. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things is like, being able to tell people who I am, what I do, and why, and not to continuously question me because I've really faced a lot of that throughout my career, and it's been hard. And so that's something you really have to get a backbone about when you become a leader of your own company.
Absolutely love it. So, what I try to explain to people is you want your interactions to be constructive, not destructive. And as
Mhm.
leaders, we you know what I'm saying? Like that's the easiest way I've been able to make it make sense to other people. And it's very funny to me because I am very, it's me personally. And again, this isn't right or wrong. It's just I know who I am. And I've been this way my whole life. Very left brained, very direct. And most people will accept that so long as they know it's genuine. You're not picking on them or targeting them, and you do it in a way that is acceptable to them. And so I've learned to lower my voice. I've learned to talk slower. I've learned which words trigger people and which words don't trigger people. So I avoid the ones that don't trigger people and I use the ones that are acceptable to people. But if you're not genuine, people will pick up on it very quickly and you will lose tons and tons of credibility. So I totally agree with what you're saying. So you've talked about kind of fighting through and looking for respect. How much, I don't even know if how much is the right way to say it. Do you think that's a different experience because you're female in a male dominated industry? I'd just be curious to hear your perspective on that.
Absolutely. I would love to talk to some women who are in a male-dominated industry where they didn't feel that gender plays a role. I remember one company I worked for that was in California where I lived. There were questions around should we have equality on boards, and Mark Benioff had just announced that he was looking at all salaries and was going to up all the women's salaries who were not equal to given equal number of years of experience and contribution to the company. And when they did that and they looked at the salaries, there was a stark difference
Mm,
in what they're paying men and women with equal backgrounds. And she wanted to do that at our company. And the leadership freaked out. And that was the first sign that we just knew there was mass inequality, and it starts with the salary. And so I think it starts with money. It always does. And I
Sure.
that is absolutely something that we are constantly struggling with, especially when you're often the only woman in the room. Both companies I sold Growth Molecules Academy and Growth Molecules to, I was always the only woman in the room with both companies. So it's something, you have to learn to work through. I don't think about it anymore. It's part of it is what it is, and you have to own it and just own what you're passionate about and what you're talking about. You can't let gender hold you back. If anything, leverage it.
You've got all sort of like we've gone through, you're such an accomplished person professionally. Let's talk a little bit about the personal side. How do you relax? How do you impart what you've learned to your children so they can carry some of those things forward and learn from their mom uh, some of the things that'll help them be successful in life? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think actions speak louder than words, and I can't say I want them to carry on all my actions. Joe, you've managed to lower your voice. I'm still working on that. I don't know if I ever will. I'm also very type A and high energy person. I find it hard to relax. I went to Esalen for 5 days last year. I said, I'm going to meditate and relax and all of that. Somehow did a little bit, but it took a long time before I could start meditating and relaxing and not thinking about when is this over. Like
Mm.
I don't find it comfortable to do those kind of things. And so it was really out of my comfort zone. The way I'm able to relax is to get my energy out and get it out early. So I'm very faithful to working out in the morning, um, pretty much every day. If I don't, then I'm thinking about it all day because I know that I'm going to be a better human. I'm calmer, I can focus more, all the things. And so for my children, I would say find what you're really passionate about and go after it and find what calms you down. For me, I grew up in a family where my father was an Olympic cyclist. My mother's 86, and to this day, she keeps bike riding. I put on my Instagram a story of her. I was running and she was on her bike beside me this past weekend. I went to Canada for Easter and just like find whatever makes you excited and passionate and do it. That's what will keep you going. And I mean, my children hear me all day what I do. I think that influence my youngest competes with her horse. She's a jumper and she's 13. She skipped a grade. She made varsity cheer after only 1 year on junior, whereas the majority of the team is a junior and senior kid. And so those kind of things, I think just seeing how ambitious their parents are, we don't tell them you have to do these things. I didn't grow up around a horse, and I certainly didn't grow up around cheerleading in Canada. Um, they have to want it and they have to find their passion. And I think that's what they've seen their parents do. We're not telling them they have to do any of these things. And that's my advice is your children are watching. If you're smoking, your children are probably going to smoke.
Mm.
Maybe behind the house at the beginning, but soon they'll be addicted. And what your children see you do is what they're most likely going to end up doing too.
Interesting. What are your go-to workouts? What do you enjoy doing for workouts?
What don't I enjoy? I don't like doing the same things every day. I mean, I'm not a strong swimmer, so I don't swim a lot, but I get in the pool sometimes. I really like hit classes, spinning. I love running, mountain biking, um, anything that I can do on my own and listen to music, or I've just forced myself to start doing more workout classes with like-minded people. I find that really good music and being around people that are physically fit and motivated by physical fitness is really inspiring to me. And so, um, I don't know, I'm trying a lot of different classes right now. I really like heated Pilates. It's high intensity, really loud music, disco ball. You just come out of there thinking, oh my God, I just achieved something amazing. And so those kind of things really fire me up and set me up for a really positive day.
I love it. That's great. It's interesting to me. I don't like yoga, but of everything I do for working out, I feel the best after I do
Mhm.
yoga. And so I do it. I've not been on a good streak now on working out, and I'm reincorporating that into my daily routine for a lot of different reasons. But we can make all the excuses we want. I'm not doing the work, and I need to start doing the work. Is what it boils down to. But I have found that in particular I feel the best physically and mentally after I do it. And look, I'm 53 and I went through college on a baseball scholarship. So I'm from the days where guys went to the weight room, they went to the track, you ran sprints, and you lifted heavy weights. That's what you did to get in shape. So yoga is complete counter culture to what I'm used to. And it's one of the best workouts I have found for both my mental and physical well being. So, my point there is I love that you're experimenting because you're going to find the things that work the best for you, whether it be the things that work the best physically and mentally or the things that you enjoy the most. And hopefully those two things intersect somewhere. But yeah, it's such an important part of your mental and physical well-being is moving your body and sweating sometime every day. I love that you talked about that because it's so important. So what do you think your next endeavor is? Because you've sold off your companies. I know you're still involved through the boards. I know you've got a speaking business going. I know you wrote your book. What's next for you? Like you're so accomplished. What are you going to do next?
Yeah, I keep getting this question, so much pressure. No, you know what? I am very fortunate. I teach a part of a CRO, Chief Revenue Officer program at Booth Business School. I teach the customer lifecycle management course. So I have the opportunity right now to do that 4 times a year. I'm so thankful. These executives dial in from all over the world. Many of them already have MBAs and they're all very highly accomplished executives from very different backgrounds. So that is very rewarding to me to get on Zoom and teach these courses. I will absolutely keep teaching them as long as Booth keeps inviting me back. And I have some private consultants that clients that I'm coaching. And I do teach leadership and support classes, workshops. Companies will hire me to do that privately with their group at a sales kickoff meeting or, like you said, public speaking. I went through heroic public speaking in New Jersey. It was life-changing, getting me out of my comfort zone on a big stage in front of really smart people. Um, but just even being present with my family, actually, I was able to watch a whole series of a show with my family over the course of a weekend. I thought, wow, I don't know the last time I did this. Or
Mm,
uh, going to take my daughter to practice on her horse and watching her, like those are the things I've never been able to do without being on my computer, on the phone, totally distracted and never really present. So just doing those kind of things, going out for coffee and talking to people and actually listening instead of thinking, when is this over? I have a meeting to get to. I think, I'm just trying to take time to do things that I've wanted to do for a long time. And um, I don't know yet what I'll launch next. I'm just right now in the thinking and teaching and enjoying my present life.
I love that. That's a great answer. I absolutely love it. And no pressure from me. If you knew, I'd love to hear it. But look, I explain to people a lot. 100 years from now, we're all going to be dead, and almost no one's going to remember anything about what you did. I hate to break that to everybody, but the example I use is the Queen of England was the Queen of England for 60 plus years. She accumulated billions of dollars of wealth. She was known worldwide. When did she die? Like, yeah, most people can't answer that question. And she had one of the more significant existences on the face of the earth. And
Mhm.
what did she do? What happened in her life? Most people can't answer those questions. I only use that as a point to illustrate your fear that's stopping you from taking action is self-imposed. Nobody's judging you. We're all trying to figure out what to do next. We're all trying to figure out where we want to take our lives. And you just got to take your shots. I love how you talked about being prepared and that it sounds like your dad gave you such good advice throughout your life. Like instead of giving you a loan, he told you to go get a job. Right?
He did. He's like, no, he never gave me a loan. And one thing I will say, because you said the Queen of England, is I want to be like Pope Francis. I mean, what I did as soon as I sold Growth Molecules is I signed up for my next CASA child. I'm a court appointed special advocate and I
Mm.
work with foster children. And so yesterday I had to go prepare for a court hearing. And I asked them, can I bring my dog? I don't want to leave him in the car by himself. And they said, bring him in. So I went and prepared for 3 hours for a court case. So I am doing things like giving back to the community. That's also very fulfilling for me. And I'll never stop doing that, whether I'm working or not. That's really important to me.
Oh my gosh, such good stuff. Yeah, I just absolutely love that you're involved in all of those things. Um, what do you have you taught before? How's that experience been for you?
I have been an adjunct professor at St. Mary's College of California for marketing metrics. Through the academy, I've taught people all over the world, mainly business skills like emotional intelligence, handing off clients through the customer journey. So I've been teaching for a long time. I think it's very rewarding to teach adults. I have so much respect for all their different backgrounds, even the negative people that show up and say, why am I being forced through this? I've been selling for 20 years. Those are the people I really like to connect with and understand what can I learn from you, right? And breaking down the barriers and understanding what are you doing to teach the person next to you who was just hired and terrified and nervous that they won't meet their numbers this quarter. Those kind of things I really will always enjoy doing. I also love working with children. That's why I work with foster kids who are navigating the court system. It's so scary, and you can't preach to people. That's the number one thing about teaching. You have to get to their level and show them that you're on this learning journey with them. You can learn just as much from your students as they can learn from you. And that's what I love so much about teaching.
Awesome. And I totally agree with your assessment. If you're doing it right, because I've coached tons and tons of stuff, because it's funny, you talked about not being a good swimmer. I am a terrible swimmer as well. When my wife and I first started dating, so we're going to celebrate our 32nd anniversary this August, assuming she doesn't leave me in the next couple of months. So knock on wood. I hope we make it. Um, but I was a good athlete back in the day, and anything we did, I was good at. You want to go shoot baskets? I was good at that. You want to go for a run? I was good at that. I was a terrible swimmer, and I tried to warn my wife before the first time we went swimming, and we went swimming, and she was like, "You weren't kidding. You are a terrible swimmer." I said, "I tried to tell you." Back when I was in high school, there was a swimming, basically. What do they call it? Just to prove that you could save yourself, and that was essentially what I did. You had to swim up and down the pool 8 times, and that was how you passed. Well, I finished last by like 20 minutes. Everybody else was out. They'd showered. They were sitting on the side watching me dog paddle from one end of the pool to the other. But I actually take pride in that because I didn't quit. I got through what I needed to get through. It didn't matter that I looked stupid in front of everyone else. And it's perseverance, right? You used the word grit earlier. And I think that if you're going to be successful in life, you have to develop grit, which I love. which leads me to my next question. You mentioned previously that you're not super outgoing, and then you talked about speaking in front of a bunch of people and taking a course in speaking. What led you to do that? Because it doesn't sound like something that you would naturally be attracted to.
Yeah, I'm outgoing around people that I know and feel a connection towards. I wear glasses. I can't see without them. I have to have contacts on otherwise. And when I go to the gym, sometimes I'll wear glasses to drive, but then I take them off while I'm like weightlifting or running or whatever it is I'm doing because I just don't want to talk to people. Like I just want to put on music, get in the zone. Everything's blurry. It's beautiful. And I also, when I go to events, especially if I'm leading a team, I leave at 9 o'clock. As a leader, I feel like do what you need to do, make your appearance, talk to people, but one, don't get drunk, and two, leave before everyone else. And I think that's just probably my parents taught me that. They always said bad things happen and after dark. And I was the kid that, had to be home by 10 and I hated my parents for it. But now I'm so thankful. We're all morning people in my family now, I think, because of that. And so I just love that. I just think it's important that I'm around people that I may not agree with, but I actually want to learn from and be around that I can then open up more. Um, and speaking was really scary for me. I will never forget the first time I did it. I was so bad. I was shaking. And I kept saying, and as soon as I could save enough money, I went and got training for it because I really wanted to get over this fear. And so many people have a fear of public speaking. And that was just one mission I had is I want to get over that fear and become a better public speaker.
Excellent. So, a little anecdote there. There was a survey, it was back in the 80s or 90s, of people's biggest fear. And number one on that survey was public speaking. Number two was death. And so
Mhm.
what I tell people a lot is you've got to think through it because if we stick to the survey results, that means if you're at a funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy, and that can't be right.
Right, right.
And I'm fortunate that I was born without the gene that being embarrassed embarrasses you. So I've certainly been embarrassed before, but I get over it quick. And so public speaking has never, ever bothered me. I've been doing it since I was 10 years old. I would stand up in front of a group and give a speech. I used to run assemblies in front of 3,000 kids when I was in high school. And I'm fortunate that it's never bothered me. And I always find it interesting when like you're very well spoken and it's clear that you've learned to either be comfortable or look like you're comfortable when you're doing what you do. Because I've seen I'm doing my research so I could do a good job when we were talking. I watched a lot of the stuff that you've put out, and you present yourself very, very well. So I always find it interesting when folks that don't like it become good at it. And I love to hear that you took what you perceived as a weakness and said, I'm going to get better at this. Like that's such a great quality for people that want to be successful in life. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think I've asked all the questions I've got for you, at least for now. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about, or any parting words or things that you want to convey to our audience? The floor is yours.
Thanks, Joe. I would say that the number one takeaway from my experience building a company for anyone who wants to is too many people quit on the brink of success. And if you're not sure about doing something, don't just A/B test it and give up without trying. Maybe you have the wrong market. Maybe you have the wrong messaging. Do your research and don't give up. If you're really passionate about an idea, make sure that you follow through on it and give it enough time. It's just like moving to a new country if you announce after a month that you hate it, you made a terrible mistake, you're likely missing out on a year of exploring and learning something new, new cultures, new people, new food, um, so many new things that you're potentially going to miss out on because you gave up too soon. And I learned that by moving to different cities and countries around the world. And some I did leave after a year. I said, no, I don't want this type of life. And others, like I'm still in the United States 20 years later, or like with marriage, I stuck with it through a lot of hard things. 20 years later, we're still together. So I just think too many people give up too quickly, and it's this fast culture we're in, like fast fashion, fast everything, instead of really taking the time to reflect, like do your yoga moves through it, really think before you act, and potentially miss out on a great life.
Oh my gosh, good. So sorry. Now I have one more question. Because you just talked about the fast culture. I have not been to Italy, but and it's absolutely very high on my wife and I's list, largely because of the history that exists in Italy. So, uh, what is it? The UNESCO historic sites or UNESCO heritage sites? Italy has more is the country that has more heritage sites than any other country in the world, and there's so much history to there. What my question is really more around the food culture because there's a food culture in the United States that I think is pretty dysfunctional right now. And I've heard people talk about going to Italy and the culture around food and meals in Italy. Since I've got someone that has vast experience in both countries, I'd love to hear your take on the differences between the food cultures in Italy and the United States. I'm not asking you to bash the United States. I'm really more curious about your thoughts around the culture in Italy.
Yeah, absolutely. We both live in America, right? It's a great country, so we're not here
Yes.
to bash it. What I will tell you is Italy, even though it's small, it is full of different cultures and cuisines. And regardless of everywhere you go, every culture has its own unique flavor and taste and way of preparing food. What they share in common across this country is the pride and respect for slow food. And that means taking the time to cook simple food. You don't need a lot of um, flavors and ingredients to make things incredible. And the perfect example I'll give you is I'm from Naples, I'm from the South, but my family and I, we took a ski trip at Christmas. And on Christmas Day, we went to the Italian Alps. We stayed at Lake Garda and we went skiing. We thought, oh, no one's going to be on the ski mountain. Italians, Christmas, huge, Catholic country. This is a great time to go skiing. Well, there were a lot of skiers, but the one thing that stopped across the mountain at 12 o'clock, everything, because the workers and everyone else went to the restaurants for home cooked food. And it was incredible. Just to the people that had been putting us on the list to go up were sitting with us at these long tables. We were all eating together. And the food, my children said, "Wow, Mom, there's no burgers and French fries. There's like pasta and all these, wonderful prepared things at this restaurant." And I think it just really, I mean, people were drinking a bottle of wine. Like people sat for a good hour or two having a real conversation and meal. And I think that's the vast difference is people don't eat in front of their TVs or computers the way we do. When it's time for espresso and it's time for food, you go and you make an event of it and you talk to people. Rarely when I lived in Italy in my 20s in Rome working, did I eat alone. I mean, it's just you go stand at the bar, you have an espresso, you have a chat with the other people at the bar. It's just a very social experience to eat. And I think that's the vast differences. Um, it's an event, whereas here it's just very fast. You see people like stuffing food in their face, as they're driving. That's just not like a culture. And certainly not in my household. Every meal's, an experience for us. And I just love that I've been able to bring that on. My daughter has her own apartment now, as I shared, and she keeps sending me pictures of, Mom, look what my roommate and I made tonight. And I'm like, okay, I did something right. She knows how to cook.
Oh my gosh, good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. I've consistently heard that from people who have either from Italy or spent time in Italy. And it's something my wife and I try to do with our kids grown is when we do get everybody together, we try to sit down, have a meal, no phones, and just
Mhm.
to use your words, be present with each other. So yeah, just really appreciate you sharing that. So Emilia, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You did such a great job, and thank you for sharing all of your experiences and the wisdom that you've accumulated in your 40 plus years. And I think there's so much benefit for our listeners to hear it directly from you. So just want to thank you again. Would love to hit you up sometime in the future, have you back on to see how things are going. And I can't thank you enough for doing such a great job and coming and talking to our folks.
Joe, thanks for having me. I loved our conversation, and I'm so excited to listen to your future podcasts.
Thank you so much. All right, James, we good on that?
Yeah, we are good. Thank you so much, Emilia, for the comprehensive conversation with Joe, and I cannot wait to produce this one next week.
Yes,
Amazing.
you killed it, Emilia. You were so good. Thank you so much.
I will absolutely promote it on my social media, of course, and then on the Amelia Speaks website and all the good things. So really appreciate you both.
Oh, for sure. And so obviously we publish show notes. We're going to publish this episode a week from tomorrow. Any
Okay.
links that you want us to include, whether it's your book, your companies, your speaking, anything you want us to include, just shoot it to us on email. We'll make sure that it's in the show notes so people can find you in the various things that you do. We want to make sure that, we're good hosts and we get the word out and try to drive as many folks your way as possible.
All right. Thank you again. Really had fun. My mouth hurts from laughing and smiling so much.
I loved our conversation. I really, really appreciate it. And I appreciate you being so candid about like the women in tech thing. I think that's a great thing. Our audience, I think we talked about this. Our audience is predominantly male. It's like 85% male. And it's good for men to hear, hey, knucklehead, you're doing stuff you might not know that you're doing, and you got to look at how you approach it. And I think, at least for me, the way you talked about it will really resonate with our listeners. So I absolutely loved it. You did a great job. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. And if you get feedback I that I can't read, by all means, send it over. I appreciate it all, good and bad.
For sure. We'll do.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, Amelia. Thanks again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye. All right, guys. So, wow, like just wow, what a conversation with Emilia. What an accomplished lady that we just got a chance to spend some time with. So, she was very candid about some things in her professional life were challenging when she started, candid about some of the struggles she faced opening up and building her company. And she just was so well spoken about the things that she has experienced and how she has worked her way through those and the support she's gotten from other people because she develops collaborative relationships. She shows grit and determination. She communicates well. And what a powerful message from a great leader we were just able to witness and have a conversation with. So can't thank Emilia enough. Obviously, wish her continued success. We're going to post links to all of the things we talked about, her business, her book, her coaching, all of that. We'll have links in the show notes. So make sure you check those out and reach out to Emilia if any of those things are interesting to you and you want to get more information directly from her and her team. So in terms of us, James puts it up here every day. Don't forget to head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available for there. And again, we're killing it with interviews here, guys. We have awesome people that are coming on and sharing just such valuable advice. So make sure you check out all these interviews because it's a broad group of people. They all have been successful. They're all very candid in sharing their challenges. And there's tons and tons to be learned if you listen to those conversations. Also got a newsletter that we publish every weekday that you can subscribe to there. And please, please, please like, comment, subscribe, and share our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. It's super helpful for us if you're able to do that.